Hello everyone, and thank you for joining for today's webinar, SmartStart Project Management. My name is Anna and I'm a Product Marketing Manager here at Smartsheet. Today's webinar is one of 6 webinars that are part of our SmartStart onboarding series, intended to introduce you to the different elements and capabilities of Smartsheet. These sessions are offered on an ongoing basis. So while today our focus is going to be using Smartsheet specifically for project management, if you need to review or catch up on a topic like our Sheets webinar, collaboration, reporting, or dashboards, we do offer these on an ongoing basis. So the Sheets webinar, for example, is available next week and so on. Today's agenda is going to have 2 primary goals. We're going to dive deeper into structuring a Smartsheet project sheet, so really focusing on spending our time in the Gantt view and enabling additional project management settings to help you get the most out of your sheet. We'll add in some additional capabilities there, like defining project tasks relationships, understanding critical tasks with various paths, as well as sharing some collaboration best practices. We're also going to then talk about really scaling your work. So rather than working in just a single project sheet, how to take steps to standardize the way that you approach project management. So we'll briefly review some of the other capabilities that Smartsheet offers, like reports and dashboards, and then I'll share additional tips for taking your full Smartsheet solution and being able to templatize and standardize that so your team is really easily able to approach project management in a consistent way. I'll of course share some resources and next steps for you, and in today's webinar I'll also take a minute at the end of our time today to talk about some premium capabilities that Smartsheet offers that are specifically beneficial if your work is managing projects, programs, or processes on a more consistent and ongoing basis. We're going to start today by talking about Sheets and just taking a minute to make sure that everyone has the same starting knowledge here. Everything that you do in Smartsheet is going to start in a sheet, and in our SmartStart Sheets webinar, we dive a little bit deeper into your sheet structure, column types, collaboration, views, filters, formatting, and more. Today, we're really going to focus on the elements of that are going to help you get the most out of a project sheet. So it's really important to think about your column types when creating a Smartsheet, making sure you are specifically setting up date columns for tracking dates and contact list columns for assigning tasks. We're looking at our primary column, which is where you can indent and really organize your project into phases. And then we'll look at sheet views, and this is where we will be able to transition into a Gantt view, enable dependencies, which gives us some of those additional project management capabilities, and then look at some of those next steps for defining task relationships, looking at milestones and critical paths, and more. On that note, let's head into Smartsheet and we'll kick off our demo with some of these sheet structure best practices for managing projects in Smartsheet. For today's demo, we're going to be using our PMO or Project Management Office template set. And a template set, as opposed to a template, means that you're not just getting a single sheet, you're actually going to get a full Smartsheet solution consisting of sheets, reports, and likely at least one dashboard included. When you're ready to use a template set to create your own copy of all of those items, which does require a Smartsheet license, you can just go ahead and select Learn More. You can also browse or search for additional template sets here in the Solution Center, accessible anytime by clicking the plus button in our left panel. Our template set today is actually going to approach project management at 2 different levels. So we're going to talk about project management at an individual project level, and then some additional tips for approaching it at a higher portfolio level. In the template set that we've downloaded, we have a folder called Project Level, and this is going to include a project plan sheet where we're going to start out. as well as a few reports and a dashboard that we'll take a look at a little bit later today. Our project plan sheet that we've created with this template set is pretty straightforward. So you will see that I am tracking status with a symbol column. I have a primary column, which is where I have been able to indent and outdent my tasks. This is a great way to set up your project in multiple phases and really keep your work focused and organized. And I have a drop-down column for tracking status, a contact list column for assigning work, and 2 date columns. These date columns are also going to power additional capabilities in Smartsheet, and that's why it is really important when you are adding new columns or editing new columns that you are indicating to Smartsheet the column type that you're working with. These date columns are going to power some of our automations, which we talk about in our collaboration SmartStart session, such as reminders or scheduled update requests. In our project plan, though, these dates are going to power some of the different views available to us here at the top of the page. Our calendar view is going to take these dates and arrange them on a calendar. So this is a great way to really visualize when all of your tasks need to be completed. Our Gantt view is where you're going to have a similar benefit, so we can see visually when all of our tasks are taking place. I can start enabling additional capabilities, defining task relationships, and using that information to understand which of my tasks are really critical and need to be completed successfully and on time in order to drive my project to a successful on-time completion as well. To do that, we're going to head up to the top right of our Gantt chart, right under the Share button, and click on Edit Project Settings. Here I can do a few things. So I'm able to map my columns, and if you have a percent complete column in your sheet, you can map that as well to track the percentage completion for each task within your actual Gantt chart. And that's illustrated by the lighter colored bar inside each of your Gantt bar items. What we're going to do here is enable dependencies. Smartsheet is actually going to add 2 new columns into your sheet, which we'll take a look at in just a moment, called duration and predecessors. We're also able to indicate our working days, and keeping an eye on my Gantt chart in the background here, the parent rows, so the rows that are outdented, are now summary rows. So by enabling dependencies, our parent rows are going to summarize all of the indented rows and their dates. And in our date columns that we had, the parent rows are now summary dates as well. So each phase will automatically summarize the dates of the indented tasks. And our overall project, so our dark blue row, will now summarize all of our phases, so all of the gray rows. So these dependencies are now approaching all of the data in our sheet as data that is really connected because it's all one project that we're working on. Sticking with that idea of dependencies, let's go ahead and rearrange this sheet just a little bit. I want to be able to see those 2 new columns that Smartsheet has introduced into the sheet as well. So the first column is going to be our duration column, and we're going to start there because duration is pretty straightforward. Smartsheet's now doing the math between our start date and our end date and calculating the duration for our task. Our next column is our predecessor column, and this column is going to be used to define relationships between our tasks. And relationships are a way of basically telling Smartsheet, I need this task to start only when this other task has been completed. Or I need these 2 tasks to start at the same time. Or I need these 2 tasks to finish at the same time. So by defining the relationships between tasks in our predecessor column, Smartsheet can automatically reschedule some work as you update the dates in the sheet as your team actively works on this project plan. There are going to be 2 ways for us to set up predecessors. You can either work in our predecessor column, or you can work in the Gantt chart on the right side of the page here. We'll start with the Gantt chart because this will actually show you how the predecessor column is completed. So let's say, for example, looking at our task in row 3, so this green task. I want this task to be completed, and then I want to be able to start this following task, the orange one. I'll click on my green task and drag down, and you'll see I've got a little arrow that comes up. And when I move this around, this arrow is giving me the ability to create a predecessor relationship with any of the other tasks in my sheet. We're going to keep this pretty straightforward today. So you'll see as I let go between my first and second task, Smartsheet has added a 3 into my predecessor column. What this means as we look at this task in row 4 is that we've told Smartsheet, I can't actually start on the task in row 4 until we've completed the task in row 3. And that's what that 3 is all about. So if we repeat this just a couple times to see this in action a few more times, you'll see that now in row 5, we cannot start the task in row 5 until we've completed the task in row 4, and so on. This is the default type of relationship, but we can actually define tasks in different ways. So rather than that default relationship, I can click into my cell and click on the pencil and define the type of relationship. What we work with so far is called finish to start. And a finish to start relationship is exactly what I just said. It means I can't start this task until I finish the predecessor. Another option we have is telling Smartsheet, for example, I would like my 2 tasks to end on the same day, or I would like my 2 tasks to start on the same day. Or the fourth option, which is a great way to set up a work back schedule, is if you have a hard deadline and you actually need to know when to start each task in order to hit that deadline, you'll use start to finish. I'm going to go ahead and select start to start, and when I click OK, watch these adjust as I'm now telling Smartsheet I need these 2 tasks to start on the same date. You'll see that my green and my blue tasks have been adjusted to have the same start date. And if I needed to, I can come into any of these predecessor relationships and add a lag as well. So you have a lot of customization here to really make sure that the relationships you're defining between the tasks in your project are actually going to reflect what needs to happen in reality. Before we start talking about changing projects and critical paths and milestones, I'm going to take a minute here and just connect more of these tasks so we have a little bit more information to work with. One thing I will mention, because you'll see here that I'm really connecting everything chronologically, I'm just doing that because this is our training world, so I'm keeping it very simple. Now that we've gone through these steps, so really the goal of defining these tasks is when things change, I don't have to change the date of every single one of my tasks manually. Smartsheet already knows the order and the timing of my entire project. So if I come into my first task, which is in row 3, which we'll talk about in just a moment, I can change the date here. Let's say we're going to change this to June 5th instead. And you're going to see several things happened. First, not just my one cell. So my end date changed to June 10th, and that's because Smartsheet knows my duration and any tasks that were connected to this task, which because I created several tasks in a row, they've all been adjusted out to June and July. If we scroll down towards the bottom where we have not defined any relationships, well, these tasks weren't rescheduled. A couple additional tips that I'll give here. If you'd like to define a milestone, all you need to do is come into the duration column and change your duration to 0. So for example, let's say my activity 3 is actually a milestone. All I need to do is change this duration to 0 days and keep an eye on the Gantt chart over here. that task will now turn into a diamond indicating a milestone. This is also really powerful because I can create a filtered view at the top of my sheet here, or I can use this as a report criteria. Either of those set to only show rows with a 0 duration will give us a nice, concise list of all of our project milestones. Now that we've defined all of these relationships as well, one important thing that we have available to us is paths. And paths are a way for Smartsheet to tell us which of our tasks are critical enough that they may actually impact our entire project getting done on time. I'll go ahead and save real quick before we continue on. And I can enable my critical path by coming up to the top and right next to our project settings button, enabling the critical path. What this does is Smartsheet's actually going to find the latest chronological task, so the last task that we need to accomplish before our project is considered complete, and it'll look at all of these dependencies and work backwards to find the tasks that, if they were late, would make that final task late and would make our entire project late. Now, because again, I kept this pretty chronological, all of my tasks from row 18 and back are lit up. But if my tasks were not all defined one right after the other, it would only highlight the tasks that are going to be the most critical for us to accomplish on time. Our critical path looks at our project plan as a whole, but of course, my project plan is likely a lot smaller than a real life project would be. If you want to focus on just a single phase rather than your entire project, you can just come up to our Gantt chart, right click. So you'll see, for example, I'm in the gray row called execution, and I can enable a summary path. And a summary path is just like a critical path, but it only focuses on one phase at a time. We'll disable that summary path, and I'll mention one more path option, which is very detailed. If you only want to know about a single task rather than a phase or an entire project, you can actually click on any task. So let's say I want to right click on my milestone and show a driving path. And this is just the same concept. It's going to highlight for me any tasks that will affect my milestone getting completed. What we've looked at here within our project settings are going to be the critical capabilities that are really let you manage this work, not just as work in a sheet, but as a project. So to review, we've come up to our project settings and enabled dependencies, which gives us two new columns, our duration column as well as our predecessor column. Our predecessor column is where we're tracking all of our relationships, and we can define those using predecessors or by clicking and dragging in our Gantt chart. Lastly, we've taken a look at several different paths, and these paths are just the same idea. We're highlighting critical tasks to accomplishing a specific task, and we're just approaching this at different levels. So, for example, our critical path is going to highlight all of the tasks that will impact our entire project getting completed. Our summary path will highlight the tasks that will impact our phase getting completed, and our driving path will highlight the tasks that will impact any task getting completed. You just have to click on a specific task to enable that. When it comes to managing projects, we can take a step back now and think not just about the tasks and the dates and tracking these details day to day, but we can think about really understanding and scaling our work. So instead of looking at the columns and the cells in our sheet, I'll navigate us over to our right panel where you can see the sheet summary. The sheet summary is a really great place for you to track high-level metrics like who is managing the project and other critical roles, important dates, formulas to analyze and understand the type of work that you're managing in your sheet, images, links to important documents or to other Smartsheet items like the dashboard specifically for this project, for example, and any information that you need to track in here. You can also standardize to other sheets simply by navigating to the three-dot menu at the top. This allows you to really focus on what do we need to report on to understand our project at a high level. And if you have similar project sheets, you can easily copy that type of data as well as your formulas to other sheets as well. The structure and reporting that we've looked at here are important for working in a single project plan. But of course, in Smartsheet, you are likely going to be working across multiple sheets, and you may be creating other items like reports or dashboards. So navigating back to our Browse section, this is where we can start talking about those other Smartsheet items. Back in our project level folder, for example, in addition to the project plan sheet that we just looked at, we have several reports, and reports are a way to see a focused view of your sheet data with criteria and optionally bringing together information from multiple sheets into one place. We'll start with that first element. So we have a report of all of our overdue tasks in this one project and a task roll-up report. And we have a project milestone report, which we mentioned back when we set up one of our milestones in our project plan. This is a report that looks at that project plan sheet. It's going to only show the milestones for that project. And a reminder, if you're looking for a milestone report, all you have to do is make sure that your duration column is set to 0. Our project plan folder also included a dashboard, and this dashboard is a way to bring together information from our project sheet, from that sheet summary, and from the reports that we're working with. Rather than copying my single project sheet and building out all of these other elements, I can actually really easily right-click and save as new. And everything in that folder, so my new sheet, my new reports, and my new dashboard are going to reflect all of the data in the new sheets, reports, and dashboards. So this is a perfect way to standardize the way that your team approaches project management because we've set up our structure in a single folder, created all the necessary reports, and created a single dashboard. And now we can really easily scale our work just by clicking Save as New on our folder every time. Lastly, our template set also approaches this project management at a portfolio level. So rather than just working on our individual projects, I can also use the same concepts to bring together information from multiple sheets using reports and creating a dashboard that brings together data from these multiple projects that we're working on. You'll see here, rather than tracking some of those details like tasks and dates and assignments, because this is a portfolio level dashboard, we're tracking how many projects we're working on, their statuses, their health, and more. If you need to review how to create a dashboard or how a dashboard is structured, how reports are structured, and how to customize those, we do have dedicated SmartStart sessions for each of those topics. Before we finish up for today, I do want to take a moment to review what we have talked about so far, as well as share some additional Smartsheet capabilities to drive collaboration, as well as really scale the project management capabilities that we've discussed today. So starting at the beginning, talking about sheet structure. Make sure that when you're setting up a project sheet, you are enabling additional capabilities. So indenting rows in the primary column to organize your project phases, as well as incorporating date columns, which are going to power your Gantt views. Once you have the Gantt view enabled, you can also enable dependencies in project settings, which are going to allow you to define predecessors to create those task relationships, which will automatically drive date changes when tasks are completed early or late, and allow you to get additional insights by highlighting critical, summary, and driving paths. All of those capabilities are going to structure your project plan and really drive the tasks, assignments, and dates for successful completion. But taking a step back and really reporting on and understanding on project management, we'll start in the sheet in the right panel with Sheet Summary, which allows you to define, organize, and report on important project metrics and easily copy the sheet summary structure to other sheets as well. You can then create reports to work with data from multiple sheets or sheet summaries and create custom views of data. So, for example, we looked at a view of milestones within our project plan. We also had a few reports in our template set that included overdue tasks and roll-up tasks. And these reports can also be used to bring together data from those sheet summary sections. Once you've created these different items to manage your work, so sheets, reports, as well as dashboards, rather than building from scratch every time that you're kicking off a new project, moving these items into a single folder sets you up to be able to templatize a full solution. And whether you need to run the same type of project multiple times, or you're looking to create a structure your team can use to manage projects, a folder can easily be copied to kick off a new project with new sheets, reports, and dashboards that all work together. Building on that, I do also want to talk about collaboration, and we'll talk about this at a high level just as a way to surface the different collaboration capabilities within Smartsheet, because we do have a dedicated SmartStart session focused on all of these. When you're working on projects within Smartsheet, most of the time to collaborate, you are just going to share directly, and you have the ability to capture conversations and attach files and documents to each of those rows that we saw within our project plan. To keep your project on track, you can also use automation to define critical changes and drive notifications when those take place, as well as send reminders based on dates in your sheet and request updates, either based on dates or based on changes or recurring schedule. You can learn more about these different collaboration and automation capabilities in the SmartStart collaboration session that I mentioned earlier. I also want to mention two additional premium capabilities, 10,000 feet by Smartsheet as well as Control Center. Starting with 10,000 feet, which is our resource management solution, which drives your projects forward with resource allocation tracking, project planning, time tracking, as well as reporting across all of these capabilities. 10,000 feet is a premium add-on and integrates with Smartsheet in the right panel of your project sheet as well. To learn more about 10,000 feet, we have included a link over to the right side of this webinar. Lastly, Smartsheet Control Center is our project and portfolio management solution that's going to enable you to really automate project provisioning, reporting, as well as updating and archiving. So that's a really quick way to say Control Center is a great way to really streamline and automate this entire process. So rather than creating these separate items yourselves and really taking a lot of the manual effort of managing an entire portfolio out of it, Control Center enables you to create blueprints, which you can then use to easily kick off new projects with just a few clicks, as well as automatically surface KPIs and reporting and dashboards with critical information about these new projects that you're managing with Control Center. It's also the most scalable way to work in Smartsheet, not just to kick off these new projects, but you can make changes across your entire project portfolio. So if you have a new KPI that you need to track or you need to easily update a formula, you can do that at scale across your various sheets with global updates. And of course, to really complete the whole process, automate project and data archiving. Similar to 10,000 feet, Control Center is a premium application, and we've included a link over on the right side of the page to learn more. As always, you can also visit the Smartsheet Learning Center at smartsheet.com/learning to learn more about these premium capabilities, as well as the Smartsheet project management capabilities that we discussed today. And for additional templates, including the template we used today for the Project Management Office solution, you can visit the Solution Center. For additional instructor-led, activity-based, and on-demand training, as well as certification, visit our Smartsheet University. And our Smartsheet community is a great place to connect with other Smartsheet customers, ask questions, and learn about new product updates. We have come to the end of our time today, and I want to just close off by reminding everyone that we are starting our SmartStart onboarding series from the very beginning, so from SmartStart Sheets next week. So now is a great time to register for any sessions that you may need to catch up on. I hope to see you there.